The Flash. Hands up those of you who never expected this movie to see the inside of a picture house. After all the controversy surrounding its star Ezra Miller, you'd have thought that Warner Brothers would have quietly pushed it under the carpet and then in another few years released it straight to some sort of streaming platform. But no, this movie cost them a shit ton of cash and they needed to get at least some of that money back, since they have a new DCEU to boot up and James Gunn is going to need at least enough money to get his first movie off the ground so that they can recoup some of DC's losses after they decided what they really needed was to completely waste the talents of the best Superman we've had since Christopher Reeve fell off his horse. What, too soon? Mind you, I do think that Brandon Routh was given a bum deal with his Superman movie. He could have definitely done better given some good writers who weren't 2 brain cells short of an amoeba. So Warner did what they thought was best for their wallet, and greenlit the release of a movie starring a crazy person who both groomed a child and then threatened the kid's parents with a firearm. Allegedly. This movie is messier than a Japanese AV star after a hard day on the subway. It has about as much focus and direction as a short-sighted person who dropped their glasses while attempting to navigate the world's most complicated maze. It isn't even that it's a bad idea for a movie, since this movie was simply a paraphrasing of the very well-known Flash story called Flashpoint. But it is the way it is done. The story is about as cohesive as a broken vase being held together with sticky tape and elastic bands. It reminds me of the scene in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure when they're trying to repair the booth's antenna using chewing gum. This movie is what you get when you take a good idea that has been tried and tested and then get someone to attempt to re-engineer it while wearing a blindfold and oven gloves. At some point in the planning, I'm sure that someone said, what if you just concentrate on the emotional side of the story, and maybe tone the whole thing down a little? I mean, it worked really well on Joker. But then someone else said, yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I'm open to new ideas and ways of thinking. But what if instead of keeping things low-key, we spend as much money as possible on really bad CGI, and then just make everything in front of a green screen so that no one can miss how awful the CGI is? Then, to distract them away from how terrible it all looks, we can have a massive battle between Superman and General Zod. No, in fact we can do better. Let's say Superman is dead, and instead have Supergirl fight Zod. And to distract everyone from how we wrote Superman out of the movie, we'll have Michael Keaton return as Batman, and have him kind of mentor the Flash, and repeat some of those awesome things that better writers than us wrote for him to say in that ancient Batman movie he did. And so here we are, sat in a movie theatre watching a movie that should never have happened, because the story was done better in just about every other incarnation. So hold on to your butts as I take you through the epileptic fit that is The Flash 2023. But before I get started, please consider subscribing as that would really help me out, and if you like this content, give it a like. Okay, on with the vid. The movie starts out with a big set-piece scene of Barry in Gotham City helping Batman deal with some pathogen-stealing criminals. And while Batman deals with the bad guys, Barry cleans up the mess caused by a collapsing hospital. Cue silly scene in which Barry rescues a bunch of babies and a therapy dog, although why a bunch of newborn babies need therapy is a mystery that will remain lost to the mysteries of talentless Hollywood scriptwriters. Though, in this day and age, what with liberal parents who are fine with having unspeakable things done to their children, perhaps it makes more sense than it seems. There is even a quick comedic cameo from Wonder Woman. Then we jump forward to Barry, apparently working for a crime lab. We meet a bunch of incompetent, pathetic-looking individuals who look like a who's who of beta weaklings. Then we meet Barry's boss, who for me will always be that guy from Goodness Gracious Me.
Why would I be upset at Christianity when it's Indian?
We are introduced to, yes, you've guessed it, it's the future Mrs. Barry Allen, Iris West. And it is still a race-swapped version like the TV series because my representation. Iris decides to insert herself into Barry's life under the guise of being an old school friend, because she wants to use him for a story. But since her part in the movie is basically irrelevant, let's just forget she exists and get back to the actual story. So, Barry is trying to free his dad from prison after he was convicted of killing his wife many years before, but the video footage that could have freed him is a bust, because you can't see his face. Barry talks to his dad on the phone, and while reminiscing about his mum, runs to his old childhood home where she died, and somehow manages not to lose connection, which impressed me since I can barely walk down the hall of my house without getting cut off. Barry gets lost in thought about his mum, and after getting all upset and reliving her death, runs off down the street, and we are subjected once again to the really weird sight of Ezra Miller doing his Flash run, which is something that I thought I had seen the last of when I watched the Justice League. But no, the fact that it is embarrassingly lame did not stop Ezra Miller from bringing it back once again to curse our poor tortured eyes. Barry runs so fast that he goes back in time. Then he has a chat to Bruce Wayne, who points out that while it's possible to travel back in time, any action you take could have major consequences for the future. And so while it is tempting to try and fix things that have gone wrong, like stopping your mother from being murdered, doing so may do unimaginable damage to the timeline. Barry, after considering Bruce's warning, decides, what does he know? He's only just about the smartest man on the planet. So he goes back in time and saves his mother from dying. But when he tries to return to his own time, he discovers that everything has gone to hell. And then some other Speed Force user pushes him out of the time stream, and he finds himself at his old house with his younger, douchier self, if that's even possible. You can tell there's something wrong with young Barry after he describes this universe's Iris West as a super babe, which means either he's had the shallow Hal treatment, or the school system has gotten so good at brainwashing in this reality that they've managed to turn instinctive common sense on its head so that even the frumpiest, dumpiest looking women are described as extremely attractive. And if that isn't a reason to pull your children out of schools, I don't know what is. After helping his younger self gain flash powers, though in such a moronic way that he manages to lose his own, Barry gets his younger self to help him stop the end of the world in the form of General Zod's attack on Earth. To this end, he enlists the help of this timeline's Batman, which is where the story finally picks up and becomes interesting, since this is the long-awaited return of Michael Keaton as Batman, and he doesn't disappoint. He really is fantastic in the role, and even after 30 years, he is still the Batman to beat. All others are pale imitations that leave you feeling cheated, though at least Christian Bale did give us this gem. I'm Batman. Keaton steals all his scenes because he actually is a talented actor, and has always had amazing screen presence. So the next step is to find Superman, and get him to twist Zod's head off, again. But unlike the original story where Superman was held by the American government, this time he's being held by the Russians, because nobody likes the Russians. Once again they are persona non grata, which I imagine Hollywood is grateful for because it finally gives them another option, other than British, for their bad guys. So, in a scene that reminded me of the prison break in Black Widow, did anyone see that movie? No? Just me then. Well, for those that don't know, there was a prison break scene, the details of which I don't care enough about to actually describe, but it felt a bit like this one, but with one very, very important exception. This one has Keaton as Batman being just awesome. So eventually they find Superman, but in a twist that nobody could have expected in modern Hollywood, he has been swapped for his cousin. Yes, it's Kara. It's Supergirl. Yay! And she has a non-Supergirl style costume, which I would never have guessed was going to be the case. We wouldn't want her to be even slightly objectified by wearing a skirt. After all, the male gaze is toxic and evil, and women hate being looked at. So now that Supergirl is free and they have the help of an aging Batman, it's time for Barry to regain his powers. To do this, he has Batman douse him in chemicals and then use a lightning rod to hit him with the juice. Sadly, this fails, but on the plus side, we did just see Ezra Miller get electrocuted, so not every failure is a complete waste. Yes, it was fake, but it's the thought that counts. Batman's equipment has a meltdown, so Kara then picks up Barry and flies him into the skies so that they can have a bit of alone time. Just Supergirl, who isn't blonde, because blonde would have been too reminiscent of actual Supergirl and might make it seem like they cared whether she is attractive or not, and Barry, with a few million volts of good times. Luckily this time it worked, and Barry has his powers back. So, off they go to see the wizard. The wonderful Wizard of Oz. No, sorry about that. My mind obviously wanted to escape the hell that is thinking about anything involving Ezra Miller. So, where was I? Ah, yes, they all go off to fight Zod and save the planet, but Zod actually seems to have his shit together this time, and kicks their ass, killing Batman and Supergirl. The Flash is then run back in time and do things a bit differently, but this fails as well. Zod again gets his way, so if at first you don't succeed, well, you know where I'm going with this. So the Flashes try and try, but no matter what they do, no matter how many times they go back in time, the future remains the same. Fate has made its decision, and in this timeline, Zod wins every time. At this point, we see that the timelines are all collapsing in on each other. So finally Barry realizes that he needs to kill his mum. Well, not actually him, because that's kind of psychotic, but he needs to change things back so that his mum dies, which basically involves putting a can of tomatoes back on a shelf, so at least he doesn't have to get freaky with a chainsaw or anything like that. But other Barry, whose timeline is about to die, is aghast and won't let Barry go. But then all of a sudden, the rogue speedster that originally pushed Barry out of the time stream suddenly turns up and reveals himself to be other Barry, but other Barry from the future, and he has been trying to save his world for years. Now he wants to kill Barry before he can kill their mum and stop this timeline from existing. But other Barry from the past is somehow more sensible and protects Barry, allowing Barry to kill him so that Barry will be able to go back and stop Barry from saving their mum. So that happened. And everything went back to the way it was, except that Barry decided to make one little change that saved his dad from jail. But somehow, this little change caused one of the most horrifying, disgusting, appalling, loathsome, sickeningly obscene, ickily gross, foully repulsive and alarming things that has ever taken place within the world of cinema. George Clooney returned as Batman. Yes, for some reason, saving his dad from rotting in prison caused Ben Affleck to morph into George Clooney. No wonder Ben Affleck enjoyed making this movie. He knew he would be free once it was done. Another little Easter egg that I did enjoy was during the timeline collapsing scene, we get to see the long-rumoured and talked about Nicolas Cage Superman. And yes, it would have been bloody awesome, because it's Nicolas Cage. Enough said. So, movie over. What have we learned? Number 1, Michael Keaton is definitely the best Batman. Even after 30 years, his presence and charisma are still on another level, and I would be very interested in him returning in some sort of standalone final Batman movie, like The Dark Knight Returns. Number 2, Ezra Miller is batshit crazy. The dude actually has to be playing a superhero who can move faster than the speed of light and vibrate himself through walls to seem even vaguely normal. This is the most sane I've seen him in a long time. Number 3, you have to be Superman to defeat Zod. Being a girl just isn't good enough. Number 4, we are unlikely to ever have a non-race swapped live action portrayal of Iris West. It's not going to happen. Number 5, if this is what we have to look forward to in the forthcoming DCEU reboot, then Warner are in even more trouble than we thought. Is The Flash 2023 a bad movie? It's not the worst movie I've ever seen, and thanks to Michael Keaton it has some rewatch value, but I won't be returning to it anytime soon. In fact, if you want to watch the same movie, but done properly, check out the animated movie Justice League The Flashpoint Paradox from 2013. It is a better telling of this story. Okay, I'm out of here. This has been Movie Suck. Not at all looking forward to what James Gunn is going to do with the DCEU, but hey, can't get much worse, can it? Signing out, leave a like, share, subscribe, and I will catch you guys on the flip side.